What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Roundup. Before I get going here, as always, I want to say be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content I put out on YouTube every single week. Two things I want to touch on in this video. First, of course, Manchester City clinching the Premier League title. Arsenal can't continue it, so City get to walk into their game on Sunday. Knowing they are already champions, they pick up yet another win with what is probably the best bench in the history of the sport. Pep rested all of his key guys because they have nothing left to play for in the Premier League, obviously, having already clinched the title. Yes, 5 and 6 years. Optics, not good. I do want to point something out, though, and get very specific about why these City titles feel different. Manchester United also won 5 titles in 6 seasons, and one of those included a treble, which is essentially what Manchester City is trying to complete this season. 5 of 6 and a treble. This is not unprecedented. There have been similar dynasties, if that's what you want to call this, in the history of the English top flight. Not very many, but you can find comparable examples, specifically that run United had. What makes this different is the sense of inevitability that comes with it, and this season is a perfect example of that. All of the kind of grumbling and the criticism regarding City, which is 100% fair, this season is exactly what that is all about. Not only did Arsenal, set the record for the most days on the top of the table without winning the league, but with 8 games left in the season, Manchester City were on pace for fewer than 90 points. In this day and age, you pretty much have to get to 90 to win the league. With 8 games left, City were not on pace to do that. It's not like this has been a fantastic season. Now, of course, starting before that and continuing, they haven't lost since I think it's sometime in February. Or sorry, that was the draw. They haven't dropped points since sometime in February. Because that's what they can do. And they do it basically every season. Because I went back and looked. There was a stretch like this last season. There's a stretch like this 2 seasons ago. In that 5 of 6 Premier League titles for Manchester United, there was one run like this where you're talking double-digit league wins in a row. And City have the ability to do it every single season. And nobody is surprised by it. Because what you have that you've never seen before is this combination of money and competence. It's not just the money. Yes, has the money skewed the sport? Is it very unappealing where it comes from? All of that stuff. Are there certainly concerns about it? Absolutely. That stuff has to be part of the conversation. It's also where the sport is, so I kind of struggle having too much to say about it other than, yeah, this needs to be acknowledged because it's just where we are. But PSG have all this money. Chelsea have plenty of money. They're not doing what City are doing. So you do have to give Pep Guardiola, the technical team, credit for being really, really smart and really good at what they do. How many signings have they really missed on? I think I've brought this up before. And Pep rolls out this new system this year. Nobody knows what to do with it. That is part of the story here, is that this is a really, really well-run club. The other part of the story is you can go buy Calvin Phillips and not play him all season because you don't need him. And you can go put together that ridiculous bench, and the team you have out there would still be a top 4 caliber team probably. Maybe not that particular 11, but you get the point. You can take 10, 11 guys off of this team and still have a top half of the table Premier League team. And it has to be acknowledged why that is able to happen. So to me, the difference in the concern is that it's not necessarily that City have won 5 of 6. It's that this season, they didn't start particularly well. And if you're going to say that Arsenal bottled the league, then that means you didn't expect City to win it. And I will get to this for a little bit here. That is my one fundamental issue with the conversation on the Arsenal side of this. And you got people saying, I saw people calling into, I think it was TalkSport, saying Mikel Arteta should be fired for this. You can't simultaneously say City are basically unbeatable, and then it's Mikel Arteta's fault that Arsenal didn't beat them. Now, does it need to be better? Of course. What we learned is that they are much closer than they were last season, but they're still not that close with the way they've fallen apart down the stretch. But you can't have it both ways and treat City the way that they have earned the right to be treated, where you pick them every year to win the Premier League because, to steal a phrase from a friend of mine, picking anybody else is just trying too hard. And then also put too much criticism in the direction of Arsenal. I push back on they're unbeatable, it's inevitable thing. Because by definition, it is not. Because Liverpool have done it, and it's not like their point total this season is going to be 100 again. It is doable. But you have to have so many things go right. And asking a team who's never been in the title race before to go toe-to-toe with this team, they were going to need a lot of help. And City hadn't turned it on yet. But that's what separates City from past dynasties that are similar in terms of accomplishments, at least from a Premier League title standpoint, and dominating the Premier League, is that you were just kind of waiting for the 10-plus game winning streak to come. Think how ridiculous that is. But that's kind of where we all were. It was a question of, okay, Arsenal have, this huge lead. Will it be enough? Because City's going to rack up all of these points. Do they have enough to hold on? So it is kind of this, two parts of the same story where I do want to give City credit because I don't think from a club operation standpoint they get enough credit. And at the same time, you can't give them too much credit because they are playing with just incredible advantages all over the place. And no, it's not good for the sport. Which gets to the final part of this, which is what happens next in terms of the financial fair play stuff. There's not too much to say until things actually start happening and decisions start getting made. But again, this is part of the conversation you have to have with this title. So all I'm going to say is if there are no punishments for this, if basically City get off for a second time, because they got the Champions League ban overturned, and now if they somehow don't get punished for this, what is financial fair play there for? Because clearly there's a way around it, and people don't care enough to actually enforce it. If this happens again, and nobody is holding their breath expecting City to get hammered, because nothing in the history of how financial fair play has been treated suggests that City is actually going to get hammered. And so at that point, you can't pretend like you care about financial fair play. And then you can start having another conversation about what that means for the sport overall. To me, this is kind of the last stand to preventing this from just continuing to get worse and worse and worse. If you want to somehow put some kind of check, even a small one, on these oil states, you've got to do something here with this financial fair play situation and this club. Don't expect it to happen, though. Certainly not holding my breath. We'll see. But again, you can't have one conversation without having the other. It is all part of Manchester City, the good and the not so good. But congratulations. Clearly the best team in the league this season, even though it didn't look like it. for parts. And that's the whole point. Is that this City season that I remember pointing out, the FA Cup's getting important here because they might not win the Premier League and you can't just bet on winning the Champions League. And now they might not have a trophy. Here they are. Premier League's done. They're in the 2 other finals, so they're 2 games away from a treble. That's what this money, that's what this manager, that's what this team gives you that I don't think we've ever seen before. It's not just the 5 and 6. It's the way that they can just flip a switch and go for months looking, not just winning every game they play, but looking absolutely invincible. And that's what you've seen recently. The other thing I want to get to real quickly is what happened in the Bundesliga. Bayern Munich played their final home game. RB Leipzig came to town. And the same thing that has been haunting Bayern in 2023 happened again. They take a lead. 1 counterattack off a Bayern set piece, 2 penalties later. It's a 3-1 loss. Sebastian Haller scores a couple goals. Dortmund get another one late. They go up a man at the end of the first half. They take care of business in their final road game against Augsburg. And so now, 1 game left. Dortmund winning the Bundesliga. Dortmund getting to play the final game at home. Bayern having to go on the road. But really what I want to just get to for a second here. I'm going to save the actual kind of title conversation for next weekend when it becomes official. Bayern Munich have dropped points 8 times in the Bundesliga in 2023. 6 of those games, Bayern scored the opening goal, including this one against Leipzig. They were dominant for the first 20, 25 minutes, and it all just fell apart. That is so against everything you expect with Bayern. It's jarring. And so really the 2 things I want to get across here are, 1, if Bayern do not win this league, they got nobody but themselves to blame. It's not that they, just had some unfortunate breaks early in games and couldn't recover. I mean, that happened against Gladbach. 1 of the 8 games they've dropped points in 2023. They're throwing these games away. And this is a group that you associate with winning. And they have Neuer, Moore, Kimmich to a certain degree, all these serial winners. And you just kind of always expect them to find a way, right? Even if they're down early, you are not surprised when they get 2 late goals to find a way to win 2-1 or whatever it is. And I'm really just starting to wonder, after what happened last season and what's happening now, if you can still refer to Bayern as a group of serial winners. There are serial winners in the squad. But this is not the same team that, won the Champions League, won that treble a while back. Some of those guys are still there. But there are a lot of guys here who just haven't learned to win at the highest level yet. And so all of a sudden, this group that we would call serial winners are throwing away leads left and right, and it could very well cost them a Bundesliga title. And so just dwell on that for a second, because to me, that is the most anti-Bayern thing I can think of. Is not only not winning the Bundesliga, but having it happen in this fashion, where Dortmund kind of did their part and certainly put the pressure on all season and have been terrific lately. But there are still points you can identify where you go, well, that could have cost Dortmund the title, that could have cost Dortmund the title, and it just hasn't. So now it's 1 game, and this is obviously as close as we've gotten to this 10-year run of Bundesliga titles being in jeopardy for Bayern. It's just hard to comprehend how this is happening, and it just makes you wonder what needs to happen moving forward. That's really the question I'm starting to get to here, because there's nothing in these past 2 seasons that make you feel like this group, this core, is going to be able to get Bayern back to where Bayern need to be. And so we've got the stage set for a terrific end to the Bundesliga season. Premier League title already decided, but plenty still to play for on the last game of the season there. That will all be next week, so be sure to be on the lookout for that video. This is all for this week's Weekend Roundup. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.